And we're going to segue into, we have Mrs. Kim Boswell here. She is fifth and sixth, yes, grade principal at the middle school. And I'm just going to let her come up, and she's going to talk from her perspective as a principal and just share with you guys her heart. Thank you. And I'm happy you're here.
I'm happy I'm here. It's a long day. Yeah. So on the eve before our teachers come back, I think that this is appropriate. Something a little bit positive that we can share with them tomorrow morning as they're mourning their summers. So a few things that I wanted to share is that I am new to Pottstown. So this was something that was, I was a teacher for several years in Delaware County and Chester. So working with Title I students was not new, but coming to Pottstown was, I mean, it's like a different world. And in a good way. I know at the middle school, it was a hard year to start. I'm not going to be the one to sit up here and pretend like it wasn't, especially as an administrator, your name being in the newspaper. That was a tough blow for the middle school this year. And I think that what we need to do, and what David's done a really nice job with, is really putting out the positive things that are happening in our building. Because if you talk to some strangers, sometimes they think that the things that they're describing in Facebook posts or things that they're describing in news articles that get posted, you might think that our halls are filled with monsters, and it's absolutely the complete opposite. And I think that if you give us a chance, that you'll really notice that our kids are really cool. So a couple points that I'm actually piggybacking off of some of the things that were said tonight is that knowing the kids' names. Not only is that part of our mission statement at our school district, but that's something that we're really striving for. When I started, you get the, hey, bud, how are you? Because you're new too, and they're like, yeah, hey, Miss Boswell. But then at the end of the year, when you can say like, hey, Bobby, they're like, yeah, Miss Boswell, what's up? I was just telling my table that Mr. Hostetler, the principal, and I were coming back from a training today, and you might have thought that we were celebrity driving down High Street, because two of our boys that frequented the front office quite often were waving at us and we had to pull over and hang out with them for a while. So I think that this is a really good opportunity. Something that I wanted to share with you, again, is that we have over 1,000 kids in our building. And unfortunately, that's a lot of kids to the little bit of staff that we have. And if you walk through our schools, David can attest to this, is that sometimes you walk in a classroom, and as an administrator, that's my job to walk in classrooms. Sometimes I'm like, hey, bud, can you push in a chair? Because I haven't lost my weight that I needed to lose, because the kids are packed, and you have one teacher to those kiddos. So something that we're trying to do this year is that PMS block that David was kind of touching on. So I just wanted to touch a little bit more and get some clarity behind that. This year, you will probably see it blasted all over the Facebook post for the school district. We are coming in force tomorrow for the middle school. We're taking on a superhero theme. So Brian, myself, and Mr. Ishler, we purchased superhero capes for all of our teachers, and we're going to have some surprise tomorrow at our district meeting. So look forward to seeing that post tomorrow. So piggybacking off of that, that's our perfecting our superpowers, because we want to kind of tell the kids that there's a superhero in all of us, that you might frequent the front office, and those kids end up turning out to be like the kids that I will remember for the rest of my life. And they're middle school kids, so they make dumb choices sometimes, and it's just that. It's a choice that they made, and having some people that show up every day, is huge. And so I'm gonna beg you, because that's what we do in education. We beg, borrow, and we steal. So I'm gonna beg you that if you sign up to do this, to really commit to our kids, because I can't tell you how many times I sat in truancy court, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going back tomorrow. And then I would get home, and my husband's like, shut up, you're going back. Put your shoes on. It's tough. And some of the kids, when they'll test you, and if they haven't seen you in their community, if they haven't seen you walk the streets of Pottstown, they think you're fake. And like you were saying, that if you're not genuine, and if you don't really show them, my students in 5th and 6th grade know that I have 2 kids. They know about my husband. They ask about my kids when they come in. And if you sit up there and you act like you're, an adult better than them, of course they're not going to give you what you're looking for. But if you come in and you're genuine to them, and you talk to them and ask them questions, and I attest to the awkward silence. Sometimes it's super awkward and you're like, when are they gonna say something? And I'm like a talker, so I find myself wanting to like just be like, can you say something? But just give them some time. And then the thing that I'm here for, and I kind of talked to Mr. Hostetler today, is that's weighing on our hearts, is that we want the community and the school to work together. And I think through community meetings that we've had this year, through the borough meetings that we've had, there's a lot of misconceptions about our school and our building. There's a lot of misconceptions about our teachers, about our administration, and I know I'm one of them, so it's easy for me to stand up here and say, but we truly do care about our kids, and we need your help. Unfortunately, with the amount of kids that we have in our buildings, you just can't do it all. And you want to. And I think during this PMS block, Perfecting Our Superpowers, it gives us an opportunity to be intentional. And it gives every single kid, when they walk in the morning, it gives every single kid an opportunity for 35 minutes in the morning to get somebody to say, hey, like, you're not doing your homework, how come? Or, hey, your grade's slipping, like, what's up? And 90% of the time that we find, statistics show that when a kid's grade's slipping, it's not because they don't care. It's they're struggling. Like you kind of said, when you go home, there's nobody home checking their home access center. There's not that person. So if for you to come into our building and provide that relationship with our kids, it would mean the world to our staff. I was just telling them that I've hired a pretty much new 5th and 6th grade staff this school year. So I know that right now when you were talking about that mentoring block, I'm going in my brain, please come in and see me. My office is the first office. Please come in and ask, because we have so many new teachers that want to make a difference, but they're going to be getting their feet wet and getting to know the kids and getting to know the procedures. And it's hard for them when they're trying to know what they're doing 10 minutes from now, and you have little Joey that's telling his partner, to do something inappropriate, and, the girl that's talking a mile a minute. For a new teacher, they could really use your help, and it would be truly appreciated. So you're not only there for the kids. And then something that I read over the summer was that we were doing a lot of trauma-informed practices as administrators. And something that stood out to me and that I'm carrying on and will be presenting with my 5th and 6th grade team is that it takes one person for a kid that went through a traumatic experience, or they're dealing with something traumatic, or they don't have that person at home, one person to tell them that they care about them, that knows their name, that checks on them, one person. So I make a point when I walk into classrooms, and fortunately I get to know like some of the background about some kids that some of the teachers don't get to know. But I make a point that when David comes, I'm one of those principals that I'm out on the streets with him walking. When I get a phone call from kids, they have my cell phone number. When I get a phone call, hey, there's a fight down the street, David and I were running at the end of the school year in my heels. And the people were like on the street, which is awesome. They're like, do you guys need a ride? And I'm like, no, we got this. I might die at the end, but we're all right. So the kids know. So they really know the people that care about them. So if you just come in and you just talk to them, they'll talk to you. But in the beginning, I moved from an elementary school to a middle school, and I was terrified when I came in November. And I kind of look at them like turtles. They have a really hard shell. And a lot of our kids, whether we want to admit it or not, they've gone through trauma. They have, parents that are struggling to make ends meet, moms that are working, dads that are working. And, you hear this stigma of like, they go home to no one. It's not because mom and dad might not care. It's because they're working so they can feed them or put the clothes on their back. So before you pass judgment, just know that that kid has a lot of stuff underneath of it, and they're really soft on the inside. It's just they're little turtles that, when they get to know you and they begin to trust you, they'll start opening up to you. But don't give up on them. And then some things that I heard, again, is growth mindset. So they might not talk to you yet, but they will. So persevere. And a lot of our kids, daily would ask me, are you leaving next year? Are you going to come back? Are you coming back next year? Are you going to be the principal next year? And, it's really nice for them to see the same three faces starting the school year. I know that's been a huge concern at the middle school. So we have a really good team. We want to help. So if you're in our building and you get into those uncomfortable conversations, or a kiddo wants to talk to you, but you're not quite sure what to do, Brian, myself, Mike, we really do want to help. Our guidance counselors, one of them is new, so be kind. So that we all do want to help, and we're just here to kind of beg you to help us. Appreciate your time.
All right, so we're gonna fly through just a couple more things because I want to make sure we're gonna probably go over our time a little bit, but I appreciate you you being here. The next session is on having safe relationships with middle school students and how can you build that safely. There's no more fill-ins as far as like your packet goes, so I'm not gonna like read to you everything that's in here. I'm making the assumption we all can read, so I just want to highlight a couple things in each part so that you just know, what to know about here. So part A is mandated reporting. If you commit to being a middle school mentor, then you are a mandated reporter. So mandated reporters are anybody who are in a student's life regularly and who are serving as part of the school system or just even in the mentoring program, you qualify as a mandated reporter. So what does that mean? That means that if you have any sort of suspect about abuse of any kind, you have to report it. And so just a couple things you should know about that, who should be informed and in what order. You need to let one of our school administrators know. So that could be Brian, that could be Mike, that could be Kim, that could be a guidance counselor. You need to let them know. And then you also should be calling Childline, and the number for that is there, and also the website, so you can make report either way. The big thing to know is that it's not your job to assess whether or not abuse is actually happening. Let the professionals do that. And so it's your job to report. And I can tell you, I've had to call, unfortunately, Childline many times. It's a really hard call if you ever have to make it, and hopefully you don't, but it's hard, but the people who work there really do want to help students. They will walk you through just asking the questions. They'll be very kind, but your job is to care for students. And so it's not your job to try to figure out what's actually happening. If they are telling you something, we need to make sure that we're not their confidant. We're not keeping confidences when it comes to being hurt, hurting someone else, or hurting themselves. Okay, those aren't things that we keep a secret about. Those are things that we report. If you have more questions about that, come see me at the end. We can kind of talk through it. Part B is appropriate boundaries. These are things that we built together with the middle school administration. So these are not just our ideas of what's great. These are things that we've run through, especially with Brian Hostetter a lot. And so here are just some things that we're going to hold to as Created for Greatness and the Strive Initiative, and as all of us as mentors. So the first one is honoring authority. The big deal here is just to know we are there to support the teachers and the administration, as well as care for the students. And so honoring authority is going to be, helping middle schoolers understand how to honor authority, because they may not know. It's never verbally agreeing with them when they're talking about how they're angry at a teacher. We're not jumping on the bandwagon like, oh yeah, I've heard that teacher's bad. Nope, we don't do that. Instead, we're asking questions like, oh man, I'm sorry you had that experience. What would you do differently if you were the teacher? And letting them really think through how challenging it must be to have, like Kim said, a room of many kids and one teacher, and just trying to navigate those things. If they disagree, that's fine. They can disagree with teachers, but we want to help them think through different things, how they would do it differently, how it would affect different parts of the situation. Remember that their brain function doesn't give them complete logic, so you ask good questions, and that'll help lead them to better answers. And then it's okay if they're like continually just really trash-mouthed about a teacher, to just say, hey, you know what, we're actually just not going to talk about that. We're not going to have the conversation. It's okay to shut it down because we want to teach them what it is to honor. Second, social media and texting. Excuse me. This is a technological world, so kids are connecting in that way a lot. But in order to protect both the mentor and mentee, we want to make sure that we do that in safe confines. So the big thing to know is that we're going to ask that you as a mentor never initiate the conversation, whether that's on social media or texting. Okay, so initiate all you want in person. You're going to have to in person. But as far as texting a student, social media, using apps that delete conversations like Snapchat, really encouraging you strongly, and really this is coming from the principals down, don't initiate conversations. The truth is, if a kid gets to know you, they're going to want to friend you or follow you or connect with you through social media, and that's fine. They're definitely allowed to connect with you, but if they ever start direct messaging or private messaging you through any of those apps, we would just ask that you loop in another adult. So what's going to end up happening is that you're going to have other people from Created for Greatness who are going to be at the same lunch times as you. You're going to get a list of the people who serve in the mentoring program, and so you can just loop somebody in, and it's just as easy as saying, hey, you know what, thanks for reaching out to me, I'm glad you trust me. I've added my friend Laura to this conversation, who's also a Created for Greatness mentor, and she might have some insights in this too. And so we just have a policy that we don't talk one-on-one with students like that, and they'll be okay. They're not going to freak out and never talk to you again because you added another adult in, and if they do, you meet with them in person and it'll be okay. But we want to just make sure we're keeping everything just really, on the up and up. And then also just be aware that kids are going to follow you on social media. So we're not saying that you don't have a right to post whatever you want, but what you do in moderation, those who follow you will do in excess. And so be wise about what you post on your media. Know that these kids are really influential. They're watching you and they're wanting to become like you. And so how you present yourself in the media world is really going to matter. And then visiting. And we kind of touched on this before. Right now, visits are on site at Pottstown Middle School, with the exception of walking students home, and that's kind of a group thing. That's not one-on-one up to their door. That's a group walking down to a safer spot. But we want to make sure we're always signing in. We're wearing our badge. We're being faithful to the times that we committed to visit, because consistency really matters. And then you're mostly going to be in groups, but as you get to know students and situations come up that need some one-on-one attention, the guidance office is incredibly gracious to let us use their offices and meet there, and that's the best place you can meet if you're going to end up meeting one-on-one with students. We want everything to happen in public areas, no private, side things happening just because it's your word against theirs, and it doesn't matter if everything was fine. If they say something, we lose. So we want to just protect everyone involved. We want to show them what healthy boundaries look like. Okay, and so it's not just about protecting us. It's really about teaching kids how to have healthy boundaries with other people. And so know that. The only other thing on here that I want to highlight is we're going to avoid physical interventions. So we are not hired by Pottstown Middle School. And so even though there's insurances that come through Strive, it's really important, and per the principles, that we are not engaging in any sort of physical intervention. So if a fight breaks out while you're there, you have 3 options. Option 1 is that you contact the closest school employee to come in and help with the training that they've been given to separate the kids fighting. Option 2 is you can help diffuse the situation vocally by, encouraging them to choose a decision that's best for them, to breathe for a few seconds, or to take their concerns to an adult. And we're going to learn some social emotional learning things that you can apply there. And then the third decision, or the third choice, is that you can block, which means that you stand between the fight, but you don't lift your arms or anything like that. You're literally just standing there and hoping that kind of deters the fight from happening. But the minute we lift our arms, that ends up engaging them. So, in case anybody were to get hurt, we would be liable in that. So really the preference is option 1. Okay, find a school official. It'd be very weird if you were in a place where there wasn't one, 1 second away. And so utilize the teams that are there and that are in place and that have been trained. Do not engage students physically. Part C is discussions about faith. And so this is just a lot of people who are signing up to be part of the mentoring program. We're coming from diverse faith backgrounds, and that's awesome. But for some of us, we've gotten involved in this because our lives have been changed by our faith, and we're wanting to care for students. So what's really important to know here is that we're not going into the school to proselytize for any faith background that we have. We're going in to focus on students for the things that they've wanted to be mentored on, to love and to serve them and to care about them because they're valuable. And so the goal here is to focus on the students. If students ask you about your faith, then you're free to answer the question and you can be honest and be yourself. But we're not going in with an agenda of anything other than to help the students succeed in the things that they've wanted to succeed in, and relationship will beget relationship. So if you're asked why you're at the school, and this is one of the things that's going to be on the back of your badge, you're at the school because you're part of Created for Greatness. And you can there's some phrases there, but probably our favorite one is, hey, you know what? I'm here because I really think you're valuable and you deserve all the things that you need to help you be successful. I'm here to help connect with the teachers and just make this a great place for you to come to school. I'm here because I care about the community and the school working together. Okay, and so you can use one of those phrases or find something like that, but really we're there because we think the students are valuable and they're worth it. They're worth us going in there. And then if you're asked who you are or what you do, you can answer honestly. If you're asked about your faith, you're welcome to talk about it, and that's come from the principal, but we're not going in with that agenda. And so, again, if you have any other questions about that, you can feel free to come chat with us at the end, Laura or myself or David, and we're glad to walk you through that anymore. Any other questions before we jump into social emotional learning? All right, welcome up Laura Johnson.
Okay, so the part that I get to share today is about the social emotional learning program at the middle school. Well, actually, it's in the elementary schools too. And I get really, really excited about this program because it's a lot of the kids, when they filled out the surveys, a lot of them mentioned wanting help even with life skills. And I see the social emotional learning stuff that the district does as a big part of that. The school district uses the second step program. And a lot of what it's teaching is really, when you break it down, how to be an emotionally healthy person, how to get along with other people, how to deal with conflict, how to learn new things. And so I feel like these are such crucial concepts, and I want us to be aware of them so that we can be reinforcing them, because like I feel like it keeps getting mentioned tonight, and I'm really glad Kim shared. Like, I feel like we're there to support the kids, but that means supporting the administration and the teachers. Like, it is one big package. And so if we understand kind of what they're doing with the social emotional curriculum, we can tag team with that, and we can help bring that in, even in, not in, we're not gonna get all teachery about it, but just in understanding what they're learning and in the conversations you'll have, it will enter in. So that's why we're learning a little bit about that. And one of the things that is tough. Okay, so you say getting along with others, you talk about being an emotionally healthy person. It's really easy to learn about those things. It's really hard to actually do them. And for a lot of the reasons that Carrie had mentioned, developmentally for middle schoolers, and also because of poverty and trauma and issues at home and stuff, it is 1,000 times harder for a middle schooler. And we know, like, I can know the right way to handle a situation and still find it really, really hard to do it because of all my issues or whatever goes on in us because we're a human. And so I think it's important to understand the middle schoolers learn this stuff, but what we've been hearing is that actually practicing it is like very different. And so that's why we're there. We're there to help with that. Oh, that went up. Okay, there's 4 key units as the kids go through the year, and I'll ask a question right now. Do they learn all of one at once and then move on, or are they learning bits and pieces of it all through?
So we give the teachers autonomy we ask them to do with fidelity.
Okay.
However, if something comes up that's arising in our classroom, we stop them.
Okay, cool. So there's these 4 key units. It's mindsets and goals, values and friendships, thoughts, emotions, and decisions, and serious peer conflicts. Okay. With mindsets and goals, like they talk about the importance of being socially connected. And I didn't do blanks on mine either on the paper, but I put out some highlighters on the tables and would encourage you, if something sticks out to you, feel free to highlight it, just in the interest of learning and in the interest of things sticking to our brains, because I know we're kind of flooding you with information. But yeah, the students talk about the importance of knowing that they are connected to people who can help them, adults and friends. It's right off the bat, it's important to be connected. We are relational creatures. The growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So this has already been mentioned at least once, but you can have in your mind, well, I'm bad at math. And you tell yourself you're bad at math. This just happened to me this weekend. I was having a conversation with a new friend who is into stuff with food and healthy attitudes around food. And I said a few things in a conversation. She stopped me and she's like, but you're making it more difficult for yourself. I said, are you going to talk about the growth mindset? And she's like, yeah. So basically growth mindset says you can learn. Your brain is malleable. It can change. Just because you're struggling right now doesn't mean you always will. Just because this isn't coming easy doesn't mean it'll always, be tough for you. Just because you feel angry a lot right now doesn't mean you're always going to feel like that. There are ways that we change. And so kids that know that there's ways that their brains can change easier than kids who feel like, I stink at math, and I stink at math, and I stink at math, and just feel like that they're stuck there. So just telling them your brain can change, and we want to use this mindset. So the three emphases here are, as far as helping to change and helping to grow, are good strategies, help from others, and hard work. And hard work is purposely at the end because a lot of kids will jump right to that. Like, I'm having a hard time and I've been working at it, I'll never change, because all they think is hard work. So it's good for them to know that strategies and help from others are important, and that that's very much okay, that's expected. Okay, then if-then plans. Students learn to think ahead about tough situations. It's like mental practice. So for example, I had written down, if you have friends who keep picking on a kid, you start telling yourself, okay, here's my plan. If they're mean to someone, then I'm gonna speak up. It's a way of telling yourself now and rehearsing it in your brain so that when it happens, you're a little bit ahead, and that maybe then you'll be able to actually follow through and do what you know you should do. The next part is values and friendships. The curriculum helps the students identify their values. And so it's not telling them, here's the list of values that you should have. It's more about helping them to understand, what do you value? And value isn't what are your valuables, what your phone or whatever. It's what are the things that are most important in your life? And it could be honesty or hard work or time with family, but it's helping them to identify the things that are their values or that they want to be their values. And then they talk about how values affect decisions. They should affect decisions. So if you say your value is hard work, then what does that look like here? How should this be impacting this other area of your life? Social media use is also talked about. And again, the whole idea of if your value is integrity or kindness, does that impact your social media life? And because social media is part of life, it should. And so that's just talked about in the curriculum, as well as talk about identifying positive and negative friendships. And by that, I should go back to that one. Okay. Part of that is realizing this person makes me feel really bad about myself because they're always saying stuff, negative to me or whatever. Or this person, I don't like the person I'm becoming in this situation, or I feel unsafe. Okay, so thoughts, emotions, and decisions. The students learn to notice and recognize the dialogue that's going on in their mind, their thoughts, and their emotions without judging them. So it's a form of mindfulness, really. You're using it to be my thought is I want to punch that kid in the face, and my emotion is anger. And then almost to go back to that value, but my value is kindness or peace or whatever, self-control. And so in this case, you use your values to help you decide, do I want to act on those thoughts or emotions or not? But the important part is first recognizing them, because middle schoolers and a lot of people, but especially at that age, you're moving a million miles a minute, that whole thing with the brain, you don't have the strongest, decision-making skills yet. It's easy to just fly right into stuff and not think about the consequences. So this is helping them to slow down and just identify what's going on. And again, they learn this in class, but implementing it is obviously a challenge. So emotions are what you feel. Thoughts are what you say to yourself in your head. But it's important to recognize that neither of them is necessarily telling us what is true or what is right. And it can be tempting to think, I feel this way, or I think this, it must be what I want. It must be what's true. And so it kind of goes, again, back to what Carrie said about the loudest voice is the one in their head. But if they can realize that just because that's what's going on in my head, it does not mean that it doesn't own me. Like I still I'm learning to make, decisions about it based on those values. And then students learn strategies for calming down when they have negative and strong emotions and feelings or and thoughts. And then they get into serious peer conflicts. So part of that is learning to see things from the perspective of others, which empathy can be tough. It can just be tough in general. But that is something that they are growing into at this age and can be really taught in the right direction there, to be able to say, like, yeah, it felt like this from my side, but like to be able to turn it around and look at it the other way and kind of do that helps to diffuse conflicts in many situations, and it can certainly help to resolve them if you can at least understand where people are coming from. So yeah, the curriculum talks about how to identify, avoid, de-escalate and resolve conflicts on their own, but there are times when on their own isn't enough. So it also talks about when to get help. When is a situation too unsafe and you're unable to resolve it. And then I really liked this part. Students talk about taking responsibility for their actions and making amends. So it can be tempting, and even in dealing with little kids, dealing with my kids, say you're sorry. Sorry, okay, and it's done. And you're just like, okay, let's move on. I'm really tired of dealing with this already. The reality is, for little kids and for middle schoolers and for high schoolers and adults, saying sorry isn't normally enough. Normally, something needs to be done to fix it. So I just got to ask, who in this room, and I'm guessing it's not going to be a lot, who in this room has seen Daniel Tiger? Okay, so I keep watching Daniel Tiger, and I'm like thinking, this is as much for the adults as it is for the kids. We're not watching it as much anymore, but there's this part where it talks about saying I'm sorry is the first step. Now, how can I help? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's like parenting lessons, because it's true. What you want and what we as people at any stage of life, you can say I'm sorry, but that doesn't fix it. What you need to do is own it, say you're sorry and say why it was wrong, and then look and see, how can you help fix it? How can I help? And so that's going to look different in different scenarios, but that is exactly, I thought of Daniel Tiger when I'm looking at that and thinking, like, yeah, making amends. It's not always a clear path to do that, but at least recognizing that that's what should be done. So how do we move in that direction? And then they kind of lay out some terms here. So bullying, these are getting into the most serious peer conflicts. Bullying is when one person keeps being mean to someone on purpose. The person being bullied has been unable to make it stop. It's one-sided and unfair. The word bully and bullying gets used very widely, but really what it means really is this. There's a lot of conflicts that aren't bullying. This helps define what bullying is. The other ones that they kind of help define are gender harassment, is when boys or girls are bothered, teased, or bullied because they act differently from most boys or girls, or because they may be gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. And sexual harassment is when someone bothers someone else with words, actions, or pictures of a sexual nature. All of these first three definitions tend to be ones that will need some adult help of some form, whether it's consultation or whatever. You're getting into those elements of like helping kids understand when they need to be reaching out. And then the last part is good bystander behavior. When you see someone being harassed or when you see someone being bullied, like what is the appropriate way to handle that? And so that kids know and they're able to kind of sort through and have some tracks to run on there. So just wanted to swing back one more time. Just to say, Carrie said life happens better in circles than in rows. And teaching often happens better in circles than in rows because relationship helps you learn on a kind of a multi-layered level. It helps it sink in. Like if you have a good relationship with someone, you're likely to learn from them. And learn from them in a way that sticks and affects you. And so we get to be there and we get to be there in support of what's already going on in the classroom and help, hopefully, a lot of these principles stick. And so that's kind of just what we want to keep doing. And we don't share this because we think everybody's going to become an expert in SEL, but it's just to kind of understand like a lot of the challenges that these kids are already dealing with. Here's some of the tracks they're being given to run on, to make good decisions. And so it's just really helpful for us to have that information. Yeah, so I guess I would just encourage you, like, keep this, as I'm sure everybody's going to do anyway, and just be quick to refer back to it, especially when you're noticing and hearing a lot of conflicts or conversations at school and you're not sure even what to do. But other than that, we're good. David.
You made it. I'm not going to keep you long, but thank you for being willing to connect for this program and the training. And so next steps would be to complete your child abuse clearances. You have to do that. That has to be done first. You want to fill out the mentor availability form. That is on the survey. So we have some here in paper form, but we will send you the interest survey, and the availability to go into the school is on that form and on the survey. So we have your email addresses, and we'll be sending that out. I'm going to be doing that immediately. If you've already filled out a form here, you can check with Carrie after. We can basically like put you in live right now. I know it's late, so I'm going to be emailing everyone with the survey, and it will have the availability on there. Join the Mentor Facebook group. Yes.
When you fill out the availability, fill out for what you are hoping to commit to, not like every hour you're available. So only check the boxes if you want to be scheduled to go to the school at that time.
Yes. And remember, it is a year. We're trying to be flexible in this situation. We still, yes. I would say, I mean, well, Kim?
So I would prioritize mentor block when that becomes available.
Yes.
We kind of were wishy-washy with when that starts, and lunchtime. Because the kids have a lot of downtime and when you could actually talk to the kids more during that time.
Part of my question is flexibility wise. There's some people that only do it at lunchtime and only in the morning. So that's kind of what I'm asking, where you have to move all that.
And I did talk to Brian, the principal. That 8 a.m. to 8:30 is crucial, especially with the new teachers. When I say crucial, I mean setting the tone and the pace for the day with the community there is huge. It's huge. I think it sends a message that we care, and it sends a message to the teachers and administration as well. You know, they know that we're supporting them and we're there. You want to download the Planning Center app. I'm going to send this also with the email and the survey. So I'm going to send that all in there. And Planning Center, again, is a scheduling tool. This will help us, all the mentors, and you just familiarize yourself with this app. If you need some help, we can go over some of that as well. But it's just going to remind you of when you're going in. It will help us. And then we're going to have some trainings. We're going to have some other trainings. We're going to have a diversity training coming up. We're not sure of that date yet. It could be the beginning of the year. It could be before that. I think diversity training is very important, but I know that's a friend of Carrie that she just contacted. But I believe that's important. I believe we probably need to do that before the beginning of the year. So we're going to assess that and kind of contact you guys and see what works. And that's it. The diversity training will be racial and socioeconomic reconciliation. There's going to be a lot of talking about some really good things of how we deal with people, diverse, all of us. It's going to be excellent, and you'll want to be at the trainings. We're going all in. It's very important that you're there. Very important that you're committed. Yes.